All right, ready to dive in today. We're boarding a 19th century whaling ship.
Oh, a nautical theme.
Sort of, but not the kind you'd expect. Picture yourself up on deck, salt spray, endless horizon.
I can practically smell the sea air already.
But in the middle of it all is this young man, Manjiro, years and years away from home.
Homesick, I imagine.
That's putting it mildly. We're digging into chapter 27 of his story, Whistling Up a Wind, and trust me, it's more about internal storms than actual ones.
So we're talking about longing then, that pull towards home.
We are, but it's complicated. It's not just missing mom's cooking kind of longing. It's tied up with identity, fear, how the world's changed.
And how he's changed, I bet, being adrift at sea like that.
Exactly. But first, to set the scene, we're working with this fictional account, probably historical fiction based on what we can gather.
Right, always good to ground ourselves.
So while we analyze the emotions, the themes, keep in mind this isn't exactly a history textbook, more like the author's interpretation of this guy's journey.
Which is often even more interesting, right? Getting inside the character's head like that.
100%. Okay, so Manjiro, stranded, yearning, and the sea itself becomes this huge symbol.
Oh, yeah, the sea as metaphor. Classic.
But how so? What's the author doing here that's beyond just a pretty backdrop?
Well, think about it. The seas, this force that separates A and D connects all at once. It's what keeps Manjiro from everything he knows.
Right, like a barrier he can't just hop over.
But it's also the only way back to Japan. That's the thing about the sea. Vast, powerful, and it's the only path home he's got.
That duality is mirrored in Manjiro himself, isn't it? The back and forth, the hope and the despair.
The tides, right? It's
Yeah.
never just calm waters with him. It's
Yeah.
almost as if the sea, always changing, represents how he's changed over those years lost at sea.
Okay, so we've got the sea as this reflection of his internal state. But then we have young Daniel, the other sailor.
The contrast there is really something.
Total foil to Manjiro's broodiness. Daniel's worried about spotting whales, getting that silver dollar reward.
Typical young sailor, right? And here's Manjiro, carrying the weight of the world, cultural loss, stuff Daniel can't even grasp.
And that's not even a knock against Daniel. It's just they're at different stages.
Totally different experiences. And it's highlighted perfectly when Manjiro tried to explain his feelings, right? And Daniel's like, isn't that where they eat people?
That line. Almost laughed out loud, but it's tragic too, right?
Heartbreaking. This poor guy, longing for home, and the kid thinks it's a monster movie.
It shows how alone Manjiro is in all this. Not just physically alone on the ship, but like his longing is his alone to carry. And it's not just age, it's what each of them carries inside. Daniel, he's got that simplicity, right? The world hasn't hit him that hard yet.
And Manjiro has been through it. And that's before we even get to the fisherman.
Oh, talk about a gut punch.
1 minute overjoyed, thinks he's going home. The next.
Reality hits hard. And this is where the theme of cultural disconnection goes from 0 to 60.
It's brutal, like having the door slammed in your face right when you thought it was opening. Worse, almost. Because it's his own people, you know? And he's desperate to connect.
They see him as this, what was it, goblin he overhears them saying?
Yeah, and it's not even malice on their part. It's pure fear.
Which just makes it more tragic. What scares them, though? It's his clothes, his ship.
Everything. It's like, to them, he's not just from a different world. He is a different world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's terrifying, right? Especially back then when Japan was so closed off.
Makes you think about how fear controls things, doesn't it? Even dictates how we react to each other.
Oh, 100%. And this is where it gets even more layered. His language.
Right. He's forgotten so much, can barely follow their dialect.
It's more than just vocabulary, though, isn't it? It's like this physical proof of how much distance has grown between them. Years of speaking English, picking up their habits.
And now it's working against him.
Big time. He's not fully Japanese in the way they are anymore. But remember earlier, he's mistaken for American by those sailors who find him.
Yeah, like racially, he doesn't quite fit either way.
It's that feeling of being caught between Bay, right? And on a deeper level, it makes you think, even if he does get back to Japan, will it ever be home again?
It's like that saying, you can't go home again, but times 10.
Times 100, maybe. Because it's not just that home changes, it's him. He's got all this lived experience that those fishermen can't even imagine. The things he's seen, done, he's carrying a whole other world inside him now.
And that's where the author gets me, the sensory details.
That's so powerful.
The smells, the sounds. It's like you're right there with Manjiro.
It's intentional. He wants us to feel it, not just read about it. Those little things, the smell of the sea, the fish.
Even the sound of the fishermen's sandals on their boat deck stuck with me.
because those have been so familiar to Manjiro, right? Like echoes of everything he left behind.
Mm.
They're almost painful how vivid they are because they're unreachable.
Especially compared to the biscuits he offers them. Like, that's his world now. So different.
Exactly. And the author even describes the meal Manjiro's family would make bean jelly. Very specific.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I remember that detail.
It's deliberate. You can practically taste it, right? And that makes his longing even stronger.
Almost cruel how the author does that, but effective.
That's the thing about good writing, isn't it? It makes you feel it, even if it's uncomfortable. And that's what elevates this beyond just an adventure story. We're talking about home, belonging, who we are when the world keeps shifting.
It's almost like he's trying to stretch across an ocean, but not just the water, like
Yeah.
time and experience too, you know?
It's so much deeper than just geography, isn't it? Home makes you think about what it even means.
Because for Manjiro, it's not as simple as, oh, I'll just go back and it'll be okay.
Right, because he's carrying all this baggage now. And not the kind you check at the airport either.
Internal baggage, yeah. And that's what makes this so thought-provoking. Like, how much can we ever really go back?
Even if the place hasn't changed much, we have. It's unavoidable.
And this author, he doesn't give us easy answers. In fact, it ends on this big question mark, right? Will Manjiro ever find his place, either back in Japan or, who knows, somewhere new?
It's what makes you keep turning the pages, even after we're done with this deep dive. Because it's a universal question, isn't it? Where do we belong?
And is it even possible to ever truly go back? Like, we cling to those memories, right? People, places.
Oh, especially as you get older, you realize how much we idealize the past. Like, was it really that great back then, or are we just longing for something?
Or someone. It's bittersweet, you know? Time keeps moving, whether we're ready or not.
And sometimes it's the smaller moments that bring that home. Not some huge life event, but just that quiet realization. Things have shifted.
Have you ever felt that? I'm thinking maybe going back to your hometown after a while, or seeing a friend you haven't in ages.
Oh, all the time. Like walking into your childhood home, and it's both familiar and not the same, but different. And you're different.
And suddenly, Manjiro on that ship, it's not just some historical story, it's all of us, in a way.
100%. That's the power of stories like this. They hold up a mirror, make you think about home, belonging, who you are, in a world that just keeps on changing.
And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our journey today, at least aboard this particular ship.
But the conversation, it doesn't have to end here. Right?
Not at all. If anything, this is just the beginning. So as you go about your day, think about Manjiro, but also think about yourself. What does home mean to you? And is it something you find or something you create? Something to ponder, maybe even more than just this one chapter we've explored. Thanks for diving deep with us.